Hello, everybody, and welcome to our call tonight. Now, I know that for some of you, this is the start of your day, and for others of you, this is basically your last day, and you're getting ready for Christmas holidays and mince pies. Now, this is the second time we've celebrated our birthday, and I'm really appreciative to have all of you here. And we've got a really nice show for you tonight. Now, I do want to introduce you to our co-hosts, and we're going to basically have the OpenFaaS GitHub members and team come on and chat with you. So, first of all, I would like to welcome Lucas Rosler, core contributor to the stream. So, Lucas, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm Lucas. I'm joining from Berlin, Germany. And I started contributing a little more than 3 years ago for a work project, but I just couldn't stop, even after we stopped our work project, unfortunately. I've really enjoyed the team challenges and being part of a truly community-driven project. I'm really excited, not just to look back on this year, but looking forward to what we can do in 2021 with hopefully a corona-free year.
Great, thank you. Now I want to bring on Utsav Anand, all the way from India. Utsav.
Hi, Alex. And hello, everyone joining us on the live stream. I'm Utsav, joining you all the way from India. And I'm a contributor to the OpenFaaS project and a couple of sister projects. I love contributing because I really love the idea that drives projects like OpenFaaS that lets us have the freedom of serverless runtime anywhere without vendor lock-in. It's really great to see you all here, and I'm really looking forward to the demo today.
Thanks, Utsav. And now we have Vivek. Hello, Vivek.
Hello, everyone. Hi, this is Vivek joining from Bangalore, India. So I started contributing to OpenFaaS 3 years back. I started with Hacktoberfest out of my personal interest to contribute to a project which is using a Golang, Docker, Kubernetes, and I have been contributing since then and couldn't stop after that. I really like the community behind OpenFaaS, and that's why I've been continuing to contributing to this project. Looking forward to talking to you all and today.
Great, and we're seeing some comments coming in. Somebody's saying hi to Utsav there. Thank you for your messages. You can comment on YouTube and we'll see them pop up on here. Now, last but not least, Alistair, who's going to be the star of the show tonight. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Alistair. I'm from Birmingham in the UK. I see we've got some fellow neighbours chatting on the channel, so hi there. I started contributing to OpenFaaS because it allowed me to work on problems that I didn't get to sort of explore at work. That was over a year ago, and I just never stopped contributing. So, great.
Yep, we're very glad to have you, and we've got some news about Alistair tonight as well, which I'm looking forward to share. So now I'm going to talk you through some of the content I want to share with you tonight about what we've done and what our highlights are. And the guys are just going to help co-host, and they're going to add to that. Alistair's going to give us a very cool demo on Raspberry Pi. I'm sure that's what a lot of you are here for. And then we're going to talk about 2021, what's coming to the project, and how can you help and get involved. Now, I know some of you are old timers in open source. You go back the 20 years to when this was first published, but it's actually something that I only found out about relatively recently. Eric Raymond's essay, The Cathedral and the Bazaar. Now, 20 years ago, open source was more of a countercultural thing than what it is today. You certainly weren't seeing cloud providers leading the way and commoditizing projects as their core services like we do today. In fact, software was generally developed in a waterfall fashion, and there's this idea of an ivory tower, top-down command and control, and proprietary licensing. Software was produced by small groups of people, potentially large teams, but the community was somewhat limited, perhaps to customers, and we didn't have the same level of openness as what we have today. Now, the bazaar signifies a coming together, a collaboration, trading, bartering. It's dirty, it's messy, things go wrong, but overall, it's greater than the sum of its parts. And the reason I'm sharing this with you tonight is Eric actually has 4 key learnings, and I want to relate them all to OpenFaaS as we come into our 4th birthday and ask, why are we all doing this? And I hope that you're going to enjoy that. So, to begin with, Eric says every good work, every good piece of software starts with scratching your own itch in software. Now, for me, with OpenFaaS, that's the whole reason this project started. There are similar projects, but this one started because I had an itch, and that was I was interested in serverless. I didn't actually know what it was, and I remember Googling one late night the difference between FaaS and serverless, which seems so clear now, at least to me. And so I started coding with cloud services, but I couldn't get on with zip files, and I couldn't work out why I couldn't run it on my own environments and my own code. Also, I worked at a company where I couldn't use cloud services. We just didn't have that. So I created something. There's also this tip or observation that you should throw one away. And if you look back in my GitHub history far enough, you'll see in 2016 a Node.js project. And that was where I did some learning, and we ended up throwing that away and starting again in Go. But also, Docker Swarm is another example of this, and we're going to touch on that a little bit more later on. Now, the third thing that he said is that good programmers, they know what to write, but great programmers know what to reuse or steal, perhaps. Now, OpenFaaS has always lent on the container orchestrator, whether that's Kubernetes or Swarm or Containerd, and we're able to reuse that instead of building it from scratch. We also make use of several amazing cloud native projects like Prometheus for metrics and scaling, Nats for queues, and a whole bunch of other projects that aren't necessarily core components, but enrich the experience for users like Cert Manager and Ingress Nginx. So take these points and think about how you can apply this to your own development. And the last point, if you have the right attitude, interesting problems will find you. And it's a bit similar to the first one, right? And what we're going to look at is several projects that are developed by OpenFaaS, but are not OpenFaaS, just like the meme that's been going around recently. So first of all, let me just say thank you to OpenFaaS, the whole community, end users, and the customers that we've had this year. Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you. When I started the project and I had Moby, I had Moby Dick with me on the stage, I was terrified. I was standing in front of thousands of people, and I had this crazy idea and I didn't know if it would work. Within the first week, I expected 10, 20, 30 pull requests, someone to deploy in production, and it just didn't happen. It actually took an intentional cycle of writing, talking, showing what could be done. And over these 4 years, we've seen 320 people contribute to the project, and several dozen companies tell us that they've put it in production. There's people on here that I know by name. There's people on here who I call friends and that I've met in person at several events before. Obviously, 2020, that was quite usual. I can call out there Stefan Prodan, Richard Gee, John McCabe, all on the top line, who are very early contributors to the project. And then there's people that have come on relatively late in the day, but have also had a really deep, meaningful impact. So thank you to Team Serverless. Now, just to talk a bit more about the traction, because I think this is a good time to sort of highlight it. There's over 3,000 people in Slack now. That's actually a lot for such a small project being built by a core team of 4 or 5 people. Those Users are a mix of sponsors, of end users, of people who like Raspberry Pis, people who like Kubernetes. Sometimes we get really great questions, we get bug reports and patches. Other times someone turns up and we really don't know how to help them. And that's where having everyone on board and around to help and discuss things really has helped this project grow, because there's no way I would be able to help everyone individually. Now, we also have 25,000 GitHub stars now. I think it was 17,000 at our last birthday. Now, there's two schools of thought here. One is that GitHub stars are meaningless, and one is that there's some indication of traction. I tend to think that you either think they're meaningless because you want them and don't know how to get them, or you have a lot of them and now need something more important. But you've got to agree that it's an indicator that people are interested in what we're doing, and it is scratching their itch as well. Those 300 plus contributors have all been through code reviews, whether that's docs or contributing to the website or fixing a bug. We've really been able to do this only because of the community. This is not a project that's funded by a third party or a big company. And then finally, one thing that I'm really proud of is just and astonished by really is the hundreds and hundreds upon blog posts and community talks that you will find in the community file. It was just last night that I watched a live stream from someone in Japan who is installing FASD for the first time. And that level of feedback is great because it showed me immediately something that we needed to fix in our docs. And I reached out to him, and now our community is growing even bigger and bigger. But why are we doing this? Why are we building OpenFaaS? Well, I come back to this quite a lot. And the original intent here was to make serverless functions simple, to make it easy for developers to deploy a bit of code, have a secure endpoint that looks after itself, that scales and has metrics. But we also want it to be able to run any code, not just functions, and anywhere. You remember, I wasn't happy with using Lambda. I wanted to run that on my Raspberry Pi. I wanted to run it at ADP on the servers and vSphere installation that we had back then, and at any scale. So you can't just build a great PaaS platform and be done with it. You need to think about how is it going to look after itself. And serverless is about thinking about operations less. Let the platform do some of the work for you. So when it comes to anywhere, and I think we might have the cert manager maintainer listening in. I hope you're there, Marta. You can basically set up a secure TLS OpenFaaS installation in 4 commands: arcade install ingress, cert manager, OpenFaaS, and at that point it's private. And then if you have a load balancer capability on your cluster or inlets installed, it's just one more command and you have a domain up and running. Now from there you could deploy functions from GitHub Actions, or you could have this on your Raspberry Pi. However you want to run it, you can just move OpenFaaS around. Now, those commands may look unusual. Arcade is just a wrapper for Helm, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on. When it comes to any code, we don't just want to leave you on your own with a Docker file. And so we spent quite a lot of time creating a store. The store has pre-built functions like QR code generators. And then we also have additional stuff in there, like the ability to pull down a template. Now, when you pull a template from the store, you can see who it's by. Is it by us, by a third party? In this instance, I've got the Node 12 template. I just write my few lines of text. FaaS CLI up will build, push, and deploy the function. And then I've got my endpoint, and we've got our TLS certificate from earlier. And even better than that, let's say I'm using my Apple M1 that I got a couple of days ago. I can now run FaaS CLI publish and build a PC image from an ARM machine, or on a Raspberry Pi, build an image for the cloud. And so this is part of the experience that we keep coming back to. Now, if you look down the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see all the blog posts that we've written to show you that OpenFaaS is more than functions. You can run ASP.NET, Express, Flask. You can actually bring existing Docker files and microservices and just put them into the mold, and they'll basically just work. We talked about the templates, but you can also bring your own. Quite often, I hear an enterprise developer say, well, you have a Java template, it's got Gradle, but we use Maven. And I'll say, here's a Git repo, fork it, and you add Maven as a Maven expert. I know Gradle, you know Maven, you can have exactly what you want. And the other thing that I find interesting, and this was kind of the original way OpenFaaS worked, is we can run a binary and go back to Unix principles of standard in is the input and standard out is the output. Now, I was having a chat with a friend at a financial institution yesterday, a very large one, and he's been looking into OpenFaaS to run vulnerability tools and scanners. Now, these don't have HTTP servers and they can't be easily packaged. So he can drop them in an OpenFaaS container and just invoke them and scale them out. So we want you to be able to run any code. Now, in addition to that, scaling is also important. And by gathering metrics, we're able to scale up and down your requests and even go to zero, so you can have a really efficient and powerful cluster. So now that we know why we're building OpenFaaS, I want to announce a few things. We've got a need for sponsors. Now, we want to also thank our current sponsors, RateHub. RateHub is one of the users that runs OpenFaaS in production using Node.js and have been sponsoring for half of the year. And our total amount at the moment is around $500 a month. Now, why do we need sponsors? Well, as I said before, this is an independent project and we want to keep it that way. If we can raise enough money on a regular basis, recurring revenue, we can actually hire people from the community and give back with a job so that they can then continue developing the features and we have even more for a 5th birthday. Docker Swarm is now deprecated. Remember, Eric said you have to throw one away. This was our first go, and it's time for that free support for Swarm to be sunsetted. Now, you can still use what we've got out there and you can fork it and maintain it, but we don't use Swarm. We don't particularly have an interest in it, and so we don't feel we're the best people to be doing that. OpenFaaS is now multi-arch, and that's the whole reason Alistair can do his demo. I think we're going to hear a bit more about that soon as well. This is an official announcement. Our images now have multi-arch manifests. They are in GHCR, so there's no pull limits on them. And the team have worked incredibly hard over the last 3 months, moving off Travis and doing this as we go along. So thank you, everybody that was involved in that. And also want to congratulate Alistair Hay for joining the core team. Over the last year, we've seen you contribute probably more than anybody has done before in a whole year. And you've shown leadership in OpenFaaS Cloud and also in the Arcade project. So we just want to say we appreciate you and we're looking forward to continuing to work with you the next year.
Yeah, thanks very much. And it's great to be part of the core team.
Now, I mentioned Arcade and what is OpenFaaS, made by OpenFaaS, but isn't OpenFaaS. And that's our incubator projects. Again, these scratch an itch for us, and we had the right attitude and found the opportunity here. With Ketchup, what we have is a tool that installs K3s, a brand new version of Kubernetes that's a very lightweight. So it suits our needs because we're more interested in serverless and functions and going up the stack than going down. Ketchup installs over SSH and it brings an install and join experience just like you had in Swarm. Arcade has 40 apps that can be installed, including the ones I showed you earlier and some more that you're going to see later. It also allows you to download CLIs without waiting for brew to update or for apt-get to give you a version that's 10 months old. This is a great way, potentially, of testing out different versions of kubectl. Arcade get kubectl -- version, and you can bring down whatever you need. We also have Terraform and Kale and a whole bunch of other tools that make this a great portable Kubernetes marketplace. You can run it against any cluster. Now, one of the projects we're actually going to be using in the demo tonight, along with these two, is inlets. And perhaps some of you have used inlets. Give us a shout out in the comments. Inlets was built whilst I was working at an enterprise company, and we needed webhooks. We needed them for OpenFaaS Cloud. So this is kind of circular. And we just couldn't get ngrok to work. It was banned. We couldn't get SSH to work. There was no way to get a webhook. So we were doing hacks like saving them in a file at home, bringing them in, and then they weren't really working. And in the end, I thought, okay, what can I do with my 12 years of enterprise challenges that I'd faced at work? What could I do? Well, we built a piece of code that is almost parasitic. It latches onto a cloud server just to get its IP address. It reaches out from within the firewall, and then it allows you to receive webhooks that are forwarded from that external server. Now, these can be run on a $5 VPS or even on much more elaborate hardware. But there's still actually a bit of a challenge. You've got to create and maintain those servers. And so over the last year, we've seen people like Utsav and Johan and Zayshen contribute providers for inlet CTL and operator that can allow you to provision onto different clouds really easily, just as quick as ngrok, maybe 20 seconds. So that has launched its own community and has grown in and of itself. This is how we're going to do things with inlets tonight, so that we can expose from my house inlets cloud. Alice has already run the command to install the operator, and it just needs an API key for your cloud. And whenever you expose a service, it just gets an IP. Now, if you've done an ALB before, probably looking at 10 minutes. This takes 15 to 20 seconds. It's ridiculously fast. Now, I want to bring the guys back in now. We're going to go through each of our own personal highlights from the project. So starting at the top.
Sure. Yeah, so for me, 2020 highlight was two things. One of the was we created a Golang SDK. So the problem we saw was so we had a code scattered over multiple repos across OpenFaaS project, which we are calling OpenFaaS system APIs in order to do things. And we wanted to really consolidate that and put that in one place, which we called SDK. And we created our first SDK this year, which is part of CLI right now. And it allows you to really use any of the OpenFaaS API very easily. And it does auth and everything as well. Second thing was related to multiple namespaces. So we saw people try to use namespace as a separation for when they deploy Kubernetes within the enterprise. And we wanted to give that feature where you can deploy functions to multiple namespaces by one OpenFaaS deployment. So we have that feature. I worked on multiple components adding that namespace support, and we almost have ready. We are waiting for people to try it and get feedback on that. So yeah, these were the updates from me for this year, and looking forward for the next year.
Yeah, the runtime profiles is something new this year as well. One of the things I love about OpenFaaS API is that it tries to keep things very simple, especially on Kubernetes. But there are a lot of Kubernetes features that aren't exposed in our API. Profiles is an extension for our API via a new CRD that gives you access to some of those Kubernetes APIs when you really need them. And I'm really excited about this because it unlocks some advanced security-related features, things like alternative runtimes for gvisor and Kata containers, give you better sandboxing between your functions, and also things like tolerations and infinity are more advanced usages with those to isolate your workloads if you need to really keep some separated. Also this year, we published the Loki provider for logs. Back in 2019, we actually introduced a log provider to build the fastCLI logs command. And this uses the native log behavior of Docker and Kubernetes. And this is amazing until your function crashes, or it scales down, or you delete your function, and all of a sudden those logs are gone. It's not a great experience. And with the Loki provider, those logs are captured and preserved so that you can still get to them long after your function has gone away. And I'm super excited about this because the developer experience has always been a core part of OpenFaaS, and losing logs is definitely not fun, not a great user experience. And so we have a much better experience, and it also provides the first example how to integrate these external providers. So hopefully we'll see a lot more next year.
And I see some people are showing their personal highlights in the chat. Hi to Mehdi, Thomas, FASD is hands down.
Yeah, I agree. FASD is one of our projects that has really caught up to people who are really not into Kubernetes or the complexity of Kubernetes, I guess. Yeah. For me, the personal highlight this year has been the multi-arc templates and multi-arc functions for OpenFaaS, since OpenFaaS has already been multi-arc for quite some time now. For a person like me who doesn't want to pay a cloud provider for a VPS or a Kubernetes cluster, in fact, this was really a thing to me. And yeah, in fact, I even have a Raspberry Pi cluster running on my desk just behind me, if you can see. So I really love running, love the idea of running OpenFaaS on my own infrastructure and not have to pay a cloud provider really. We have been really hard at work at getting OpenFaaS really compatible with putting out multi-arc functions. We are using something called BuildX. So BuildX is actually a tool that allows us to emulate the build environment for our functions. And this is really useful for something like M1, the M1 chip that Apple has introduced. So a lot of us have been hard at work. And yeah.
That's great. So you've got a couple of points here.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. So for me, what's been really great this year is working with the community and working with them on their contributions to Arcade. So as we've been through Arcade, it's like a command line installer for Kubernetes apps and CLIs, and we've got more than 40 apps and CLIs you can install, and lots of those have been contributed by or worked on by the community. There's a lot of names in the chat here that I've reviewed PRs for, so thank you for your contribution. And the other thing is we've spent some time and worked on the inlets.dev website and blog. So we found that there's a lot of information out there, but it wasn't necessarily all easily searchable, easily in one place. So for me, being involved in bringing all that together and seeing some community contributions for guides has been really great.
Excellent.
So thank you everyone for that.
Now, we need to save some time for Alistair's demo, so I try to keep mine brief. I was asked by the Linux Foundation to contribute a training course on serverless, Introduction to Serverless for Kubernetes. It allowed me to play with Knative and Kada, Azure Functions, and a whole bunch of other projects, and write some analysis on what they do well. Now, we're not comparing the projects, and we're not saying one is better than the other, although don't listen to me because I'm clearly biased. But Go and have a look at it. Sign up. It's absolutely free. We had 1,000 signups within the first 24 hours for it. And it has a bunch of chapters on how to operate OpenFaaS. So if you've heard of our workshop, it's a rethink on that purely around Kubernetes. And it also covers operational concerns like TLS and mapping routes and having a REST-like API. So I hope you'll enjoy it. And then just like a few people have mentioned already, like Thomas there, FASD. I got to launch that at the Serverless Summit at KubeCon EU, and finally got the stage to announce it and explain why it needs to exist. There's a 10-minute video. I really encourage you to go and look at that. I think you're going to enjoy it too. Now, we've had over 28 individuals that have contributed to FASD and many more that have done it indirectly through contributing to OpenFaaS. I want to thank Carlos and Alistair, who were two of the first contributors to the project. Akira Suda, who's a maintainer of Containerd and Moby, and everybody else that's sent PRs, that's helped us with the automation, like Simon, who I know is tuning in with his Christmas jumper on, and everybody else who's going to contribute in the future. It's nice to be able to welcome folks in who aren't necessarily Kubernetes experts and don't really want to become them either.
So we've had a question, Alex, about where we can find the serverless course. I suppose we'll pop a link on the video description afterwards.
OpenFaaS.com, and in the Git repo, there's a link on both of them. So fairly easy to find.
Someone's put in a link in the chat, so thank you.
That's great. And if you want to run one or two functions, not only is that probably going to cost you $120 a month on DigitalOcean, and that's the cheaper end, and EKS will cost you a lot more. You're going to need 3 to 4 VMs, Kubernetes, network driver, container registry, Ingress, load balancer, cert manager, Helm, Flux, CI server, Docker, Prometheus, Grafana, OpenFaaS or Knative, your code, and then a team to run it for you. It is a lot. And we can't really get away from that. And what we've done is tried to, with OpenFaaS, with Arcade, Ketchup, etc., minimize how much you have to see and care about. But it's always there. And that's where FASD comes in. It only needs 512 megs of RAM, as I've been assured by somebody running it this way. It can run on Raspberry Pi 3, and K3S now is a bit too big for Raspberry Pi 3 or the Turing Pi. FASD is fine. But we had to put some things out, right? We had to get rid of clustering. We got rid of the expense. We got rid of the degree in YAML. And we got rid of cold starts, because even though we can scale to 0, by reaching down into Containerd, we can use advanced features like pausing and freezing. And the cold start's probably faster than a hot start on Kubernetes. It is fast. But we don't have replica scaling, so you can't scale your function to 100 replicas, but you could deploy it 100 times. You also can't use Docker Desktop to run FASD. You can build your functions with it, but you're going to need multipass or a VM if you're a Mac user. What's still in is all of OpenFaaS, NATS, Prometheus, but we're now building and leaning on Containerd and CNI instead of Kubernetes or Swarm. That's why we don't have the clustering. You can add custom services, and I don't think many people realize this, but we're using the open source Docker Compose spec that Docker released. We're not using Compose, but the spec. And that allows you to go in and say, right, I want Prometheus, and I want to expose it on the host. And I want influx because I need a database. And I want inlets because I need an IP. And I want Caddy. And you can just add them and FASD will manage them. It runs as a systemd service, and you get to get your logs in the journal. Now, I know somebody commented about long-lived logs. This is something that Lucas, I think you could only describe as a adventure, getting this working.
It's a good thing I love logs.
Right. For a long time, we didn't think we could get this actually working. And eventually we did. So you get all your logs in the journal. I've got a Raspberry Pi running downstairs. I can log in journalctl, look at each different function. It's great to use normal Linux stuff. And then we can automate it with Cloud Init, because we don't want you to be running Bash. We don't want you to be going into the guts of it. It should be as easy as Helm. And finally, we've seen indie type developers that would only use Lambda actually running FASD for parts of their micro-SaaS. And I think that's probably the litmus test of whether we've made it easy enough. Now, OpenFaaS and OpenFaaS Cloud, that's the main demo we've got for you tonight. We still have a good 20, 25 minutes left. Look at the layers we've got. We've got GitOps and source control at the top. That's what you normally don't have automated for you. And that's what OpenFaaS Cloud adds. The second two layers underneath that are what you get by default when you install with Arcade. So what have we done? We've actually layered up so that developers don't have to interact with OpenFaaS or Kubernetes or Docker, and they're really just focused on their source control and having a dashboard and some feedback. And the reason for that is that we found there was two kinds of people that used OpenFaaS. On the one hand, there were operators who are like platform engineers. Alistair is a good example of one of those, and Lucas is as well. And I think Vivek now in his new job. And then you have developers who are a bit more like me, and perhaps like Utsav and some of you. As a developer, I want an ease of use from a platform. I want good language support, Git integration. I want a dashboard to see what's going on and to collaborate with my team. But as an operator, all of that Kubernetes stuff, that's what I care about. I want a reliable service that's using Kubernetes and Helm, has RBAC limits in place. I want ingress, rate limiting, TLS, secrets in Vault. I want the works. But we found that actually they were never really the same person. Only occasionally they were. And so that's why we built this project. Alice, do you want to tell us a bit about the boundaries and where the developer and operator plays here?
Yeah, so when using OpenFaaS Cloud, generally there'll be one person or team that look after it, manage it, deploy it, and run it. And they would typically be people like me, platform engineers, maybe your DevOps team, and they want to build a platform where the developers can self-serve running their code, and they don't need to learn how to build, Kubernetes YAML. They don't need to use Helm. They basically just, as you can see in the box on the screen, they just write their code on their laptop and do a Git push, and then the platform, which is the rest of it, the OpenFaaS Cloud platform, will take care of building, testing, deploying, and providing a TLS endpoint for their function.
Thank you. So hope that makes sense. As a developer, you're putting code in a Git repo, and then you're getting a dashboard. And the operator is deploying this platform, and largely it's taking care of itself. Now, I just didn't think this could be done to run all of that on a Raspberry Pi. We've got all sorts of things in there, from sealed secrets to cert manager to ingress nginx. And many of them have only become multi-arch in the last year or few months. So really, this is a timing thing as well as a technical challenge. Now, it could always be done, but it was just so hard to maintain all those patches. Today, it's basically effort-free, and you can follow the same instructions for a PC on your Raspberry Pi or Graviton server now. But it's not about playtime. This isn't for fun, although you might enjoy it. It's actually about where the future is going. Now, in 2021, I think we're going to see many more people having an M1 in their arsenal, having it as their daily driver. And we need ways of working with them and helping them. Go has just released an official binary, a beta version. Go and get it. And this allows you to run Go on your new M1 chip. AWS have really heavily invested in ARM. And now we see that Twitter is going to move their timeline feature over to these new instances. Because in some cases with Elasticache, you can save 40% on your bill. And then I just wanted to call out that Docker has done an amazing job of building this preview version of Docker Desktop. I've used it. I've contributed to the projects with it. Hats off. They've done amazing. So, Alice, it's now back over to you. You're on mute, but
I'm now not on mute.
We're all here.
I am presenting my screen, so if you want to put that on.
Let me get you across. Okay.
So hopefully you can see my screen, which is the catchphrase of 2020. But I'm going to do a live demo now. I'm going to deploy OpenFaaS Cloud with all those goodies that we talked about earlier, hopefully in less than 5 minutes. We're then going to have a real world use case. So I'm going to build a function or deploy a function to query my AWS Route 53 domains and return those back to us. And to do that, I'm going to have to use read-only AWS user. So we're going to have to secure those credentials by using sealed secrets. We're going to commit and push to the Git repository, and OpenFaaS will watch and trace OpenFaaS Cloud deploying that, providing us with a TLS secured endpoint. And then we're going to go in to look at some cool functions that I've written as slash commands to query other functions, to do some sort of day-to-day operations tasks. So first thing I'm going to do is kick off this command. And all will become clear in a little bit, but it takes about 120, 160 seconds. Well, maybe a little more on my machine. But this is installing OpenFaaS Cloud locally onto my laptop in K3D. So while that's going, I'm going to resume presenting and just talk through what we're doing. So I have some config on my laptop there, and I've invoked a CLI that we build and maintain called OFC Bootstrap. So this is used to bootstrap OpenFaaS Cloud. We use Arcade, one of our other projects under the hood, and it does our installation of OpenFaaS, Ingress Nginx, Cert Manager, Sealed Secrets, and Minio. And this is deploying, this is any arch, so it's the same command for everything because Arcade and some of the charts are multi-arch. So it just works in trademarks.
It also gets all the binaries and clients down, doesn't it? So that's what I was saying earlier about being able to pull down Terraform. It gets you its own kubectl, its own Helm, the whole works. You never need to touch Brew again.
No, no. It downloads its own versions up here of FastCLI and kubectl to install into the cluster, just so we know that the versions all work and do what they're supposed to do. But a little bit of overview on the sort of init YAML, the config file. So we provide a base config file for OpenFaaS Cloud. It's, as you can see on the right, it's quite long. There's about 350 lines of config in there. We used to ask people to find and update various bits of information in there, which can be a bit tricky when it's 300 lines long. But we were working with an end user earlier in the year, and they said, why can't we provide the ability to overlay files on top, a bit like the customize idea? So you start with your base config, and then we layer these configs on top. So this is an example of a GitHub app set of credentials that is just going to be layered over the top and override those initial config files.
Wait, what does the GitHub app do?
So the GitHub app listens for events in our GitHub repository. It then sends webhooks to the OpenFaaS Cloud listener, which then pulls down the code, builds it, deploys it. So it's the link between our OpenFaaS Cloud installation and it provides the sort of GitOps thing. So we also support self-installed GitLab. But yeah, that's not what we're using today. We use github.com. And I'll show you the command for generating one of these GitHub apps.
That is painful as well. If anybody's created a GitHub app and copied and pasted everything out of it. I really like using this now.
Yeah, it's a really good usability improvement. And then the final file I created is just 5 lines to just overlay some information on top of that. And that really is all it takes to get.
So you could just regenerate that GitHub file at any time and keep the top and bottom one.
Yeah, so if you lost your config for GitHub or you wanted to create a new app or move it to a new organization, you can do that.
I remember doing this for the first OFC Bootstrap, like the first blog post, and the difference between revisiting that and doing it with this is just night and day. It really is a great improvement in the usability, the experience.
Yeah, and I'll show us generating one of those in a moment. But we can see here on my laptop, it took 149 seconds to install OpenFaaS Cloud. And I'm now going to do I'm going to try and port forward this installation running in K3D to my local machine, and fingers crossed. System. Have we got any questions?
Vivek, you've worked quite a bit with OpenFaaS Cloud recently, haven't you? What have you been doing yourself?
Yeah, so recently we added support for installing OpenFaaS Cloud with operator. So making sure the OpenFaaS Cloud is supported with the OpenFaaS operator.
And we're going to look to use that in the future to improve the deployment and re-release process as well. So that's important work.
What's the difference between the operator and the normal FaaSnities?
Yeah. So with operator, people can manage functions like CRD, and and with FaaSnities, it provide Kubernetes REST APIs.
Yeah, so we can start to.
If you want a function custom resource, comment below if you think that's useful to you, and we'll spend a bit more time telling you how to use it.
Yeah. So what I've got on the screen here is the dashboard for that installation I've just created. I have something in my host file to forward system example com to localhost on port 8080, and I've got my dashboard ready to go. So 150 seconds. There's no TLS set up, but like these things, we can start with this base installation. We can add TLS and redeploy it.
So what you're saying is we can try this in 150 seconds or less.
Yeah. And that's got a GitHub integration. And if you've got a public IP, or you can use inlets like we'll use later on, you can use it 150 seconds or so. So I'm just going to show the generation of the.
Actually, I think with the time we have left, it might be better to go to the demo that you've got.
Yeah, that's fine. Right, continue presenting. So we have set up, Alex has got 2 Raspberry Pis in his house, and they are using Ketchup to install K3S, and we're using inlets with the DigitalOcean provider to provide ingress into his house. And we've got, you need those things on the right domain, using one of my domains, github.com account, and I think the Raspberry Pis are backed with a USB NVMe storage, just for speedy pulling and usage of images and things. I'm going to go back to live coding again, which is always fun. I'm going to show you my Route 53 record querier, and I'm going to try and seal the secrets for those, my secret AWS credentials. So we have, where are we? We've got in the wrong place.
So we will actually go through the prize draw on the last slide. And just so people are aware, we might overrun a few minutes, but it will be worth waiting for if you're going to win something. So do hang on.
Yeah, so we have I've got a function here written in Golang that should read some secrets and then go off to Route 53 in Amazon, fetch my list of hosted zones, and then for each hosted zone, it's going to loop through and print out the records with those, which could be useful to do. You could write anything you want to query how many EC2 instances are in your auto-scaling group, or how healthy your Kubernetes cluster is, or any of these things you could write a little function for. But I'm going to go through CLI. So I'm going to go through sealing my AWS credential secrets using sealed secrets. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So we have, I've set them as environment variables, so you don't see them. And I'm going to use the FastCLI Cloud Seal command, which uses the public certificate from sealed secrets to essentially encrypt that.
If anybody's used OpenFaaS Cloud already and run this before, actually getting that is tricky. So you've got to log in and pull it out or get it from the generation. It's now on the dashboard. And I personally am going to use this and really happy to see that tiny change. So if you're a UI developer and that's the kind of thing you can help us with, do get in touch because we need your help.
Yep. So that was been added very recently. You can grab the public key from here, which is
and the
great.
GitHub app right as well if you want to install it. And again, it's so simple, but it makes a massive difference.
Yeah. So I've just catted the file it's generated, and you can see here it's encrypted those access key and secret key. So I'm going to just add those quickly.
And that's using the sealed secrets project from Bitnami. So Chris Campbell's asking, how does that work? And what will happen is an encrypted version goes to the repo, the controller decrypts it, and then it gets attached. And we're seeing that happening right now.
Yeah, so we have done a commit, and it's gone off to our OpenFaaS Cloud installation, which has registered that it needs to build and redeploy these functions. So you can see here already that our Route 53 function has already been built and deployed onto our cluster. So
excellent.
One great thing we get here is this is the build logs. These are the output of essentially Docker build, and in here we've got we run a Go format check, and we also run Go test somewhere in here.
Right, and I can actually see that saying ARM.
Yeah,
so
this is building in cluster on the Raspberry Pi in your house. Yeah. So if I refresh the page here, we should see that our Route 53 function was deployed a few seconds ago, and we can come in here and we can get the endpoint. And if all things go well, fingers crossed, it might take a second. Oh, it hasn't gone well. It hasn't found my. It's possibly because it's still redeploying. And it might not.
Did you use the right key? I mean, did you redeploy this earlier or something?
I have been deploying it up and down, but it might.
Okay.
It might
Show
not
us the Slack because we know this. We know this works. Show us I think you've got like a ChatOps integration.
Yeah. So also in there you'll see ChatOps bot, and we've got images and we've got a couple of other functions.
So when you're going to invoke, can you go onto its logs page and then we could refresh it as we use the bot? Okay.
Yep. So there's no logs in here. This is this gets an image from like an S3 like storage, so Minio, and I have got an invoke Slack command that I've written, and I'm going to write invoke images, and fingers crossed it's going to grab an image, one of our slides from earlier. Hopefully you can see that. That's as big as I can get it.
Yeah, that looks great. I can see that. And this is something that personally I find amazing because I'm actually seeing that file come back from your bot, and that required you to capture the result, upload it to Minio, and then link it back. And all of that tends to happen in tools like Slack and FlowDoc and stuff like that without you knowing about it. But actually, that is super cool.
Yeah,
so
we
what
can see.
You do with ChatOps? What kind of things
So
do you do with that?
we use it for a lot of incident response. So getting back the status of deployments, checking the logs, making sure bits and pieces of the platform are healthy, restarting servers, updating deployments. We use things like that. Really good for incident response is one of those really good use cases. So if you've got some dashboards for your production account and you can never remember the URL for it, you could write a slash command to give you all the relevant URLs, or to print out your runbook, or to create you a new channel so that you don't use the same incident channel for everything, and you can keep everything self-contained. So ChatOps is good. We use it a lot. And thing. So unless there's any other questions,
So
that's kind of the end of the demo. If you want to stop my screen.
We've seen, what have we seen? We've seen Raspberry Pi. Can you log into the Raspberry Pi and do a get nodes and a get pods and prove that it actually is?
Yeah, if you want to put my screen back up again. SSH on, or just use kubectl? kubectx pi, and kubectx, yeah. And
Mehdi enjoyed that demo. Thanks for that, Mehdi.
I'm going to be going to your chat bot later.
I'm definitely going to be taking your example and, I don't know, running a report in a CLI that generates a PDF, and then I can just get it as an attachment or connects to a Google form. You know, I emailed everybody using a mail merge tool. I'd much rather do it through the bot or something like that.
Yeah, so we can see from the output of this that the OS image on those two Pi nodes is Raspberry. So yeah, we're using.
I think that's
ARM.
a mic drop there.
Boom. That's it. Neat out. Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you found it useful. Live demos don't always go to plan, as we've seen.
Who would like to see a bit more of this in January, where we might scale some of the functions to 0 and show you them coming back up live? Tell us in the comments. Okay, now, I know you're all desperate to know whether you've won a prize in the prize draw. We've got a few more minutes left. For 2021, we're going to actively keep developing and maintaining the project as best as we can with the limited resources we have. If you're an end user, you know how to help us. FASD is going to continue to be developed, but we're not just going to add features to it because we can. We want to deliberately keep this as lean as possible. There's some things that it didn't do from the start, like memory limits, which some people thought were crazy. At the same time, a company called Sprucey put it into production in China for machine learning workloads. So sometimes crazy is okay. Arcade has 40 apps and 20, 30 CLIs. Contribute. Send us pull requests for what you use. See what's not there. What is there that takes you 6 steps to install, or you can never remember the commands and the arguments? Tutorials have done incredibly well on the inlets and OpenFaaS blog this year. We're going to keep doing that. Like the ones I showed you with Flask and with Node.js and with Go. We want you to understand what you can do with this, and welcome contributions there too. Now, let us know in the comments, would you like to tune in to a session like this next year, where we will go over some of your questions, respond to them, give you some more demos? If you want to come, we'll put it on for you. Now, in terms of areas to research, we're hearing people asking about batch jobs. We're hearing people asking about workflows. We don't completely understand how that's going to fit into OpenFaaS and if it's something that aligns with what we want to do and maintain. Again, remember, we want to scratch our own itch. And if it's not a problem we have or understand or have empathy with, there's not much motivation to go there. So this is a call for you to participate. Tell us what isn't working for you and what you want to see in the project for the next year. Now, off the back of that, if you're good with graphic design, we need your help. I want to thank Ihab for the introduction that he put together literally about half an hour before we went live. I loved that, and I just couldn't do that myself. If you want us to pay you and you're a good designer or a contractor, we don't mind paying you out of the little money we have, because we know that it's going to make the project better. So either way, get in touch with us. And then front-end development. So little tweaks like you saw in that dashboard, we can help you get set up, and you can come and have an impact on something that people are using all over the world. And then last but not least, writing content is actually quite challenging for a lot of engineers. Come and have a go. Or if you have a flair or you enjoy doing it, we're happy to work with you and have you guest post, promote it, help you build your profile and brand up. So 2021 from the commercial point of view, and then we got the prizes, and we're overrunning a couple of minutes. The premium subscription that a few of you have already asked about is going to be something that we think is going to help sustain the project through the next year. This is a chance for you as a customer that's using OpenFaaS to get help when you need it, but also to get access to the custom add-ons that we're building for companies. So SSO allows you to use Okta, Active Directory, Auth0, GitLab, you name it, to have one credential for the system, and then for everybody that uses the system to have their own and to be managed in your IDP. Right. We're also exploring whether templates, for example, that request on Maven that we think is trivial to make, perhaps if we were to provide that for companies, that might be something that you would pay for and get value out of. Likewise, for events, there's been requests around Kafka. Perhaps we can provide a better level commercially than we can in the open source project. And we really want to put together a new dashboard that helps you to collaborate and manage your OpenFaaS installations. Finally, launch today is affordable drop-in pricing when you need help. Now, there's no availability on this until January, but do take a look at it. Don't wait until you've spent 3 months trying to figure it out on your own when you can just get a call with an expert and get help. So, supporting the community. If you're an end user community or customer, go and put your use case in the adopters file. You'll see other companies that have done that too. The style, don't be shy, you can email us. We want to know how you're using the project. We want you to build a relationship with us so that we know what to build and we know if it's scratching your itch and helping you. And if you have particular problems, we can consider them in the roadmap. Now, companies can also sponsor the GitHub organization for OpenFaaS through GitHub as their organization. We don't have any doing that yet, but on my personal account, well, actually I think on the Inlets account, Vision has started sponsoring month by month. And so we're really grateful for that. Now, as an individual, come and tell your story through the blog or through your social network or do your own live stream, because it helps us do more than we can. And sometimes that's not always convincing when it's coming from the people building it. But if you're using it and enjoying it, tell people about it. And you can get a weekly email from me. I'll be sending one out tomorrow through my GitHub sponsors page on everything that's changing in OpenFaaS and all the projects we mentioned. So last but not least, the prize draw. So if you see your name here and it's a t-shirt, send me an email so I know what size to send you. Otherwise, I'll send you a random one if I don't hear from you. And congratulations to everybody that won swag. Now, if you're not on that list, we've got store.openfaas.com and you can get a great jumper, Christmas jumper like this. We've got the commemorative mug that Utsav put together for us. Thank you, Utsav. That was a great design. I even showed it to my mum and she was impressed. So, congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
So I want to wish you all a very happy Christmas. Enjoy your time off, whether you're breaking up now or in a week. And we want to hear from you in 2021. Come try out OpenFaaS Cloud, deploy it on your Raspberry Pi, deploy it on your laptop. Continue to be a part of the community. It's great to have you here, and we couldn't do it without you. So we're getting some messages in here now. Happy birthdays. Some congratulations. Batuhan, who's been contributing to Arcade. Thank you. Thomas. Mehdi. Got a Santa there. And Johan, thank you for your contributions to the Inlets blog. And we have David Salek. Oh, Z, you did stay up late, didn't you? Thanks for joining us and for your contributions to inlets operator. Well, thank you for all these messages. And Peter, we will be on Slack. Most of us are probably going to go and have our dinner now. But if you want to chat with us and you've got more questions and comments, slack.openfaas.io. I'll just give you a quick link for that. And I want to thank the guys that joined tonight to co-host. I appreciate all of the preparation you put into this, and thanks for your willingness to come along and be part of it. All right. Happy birthday, OpenFaaS. All right. Good night, everybody.